Welcome to another video for Design 113 Intermediate CAD, and in this video we're going to be taking a look at dynamic blocks a little bit more. And to start out with, there's a file you're going to need to download that we're going to start using. If you go to our Blackboard page, in the Week 2 folder you'll see down here at the bottom I have a Lab E assignment, and you're going to want to start with this labe.dwg drawing. That's something that I've put a little bit of geometry into already, so we don't have to start totally from scratch. So once you download that file, you'll see what I have here. And what we're going to do basically is we're going to create a dynamic block for this bed that you could use like in a residential drawing or for laying out a home or something similar to that. So we're going to take this starting drawing of a queen size bed, and we're going to create a dynamic block that will allow us to choose other sizes of beds also. So you could choose king, queen, full, or twin. And one other thing you'll want to find from our Blackboard page is I have a PDF right here with some standard mattress sizes. And once you open that up, you'll see that it looks like this. And these are the 4 sizes we're going to be using. So make sure you pay attention to those dimensions when you are adjusting this drawing so that you come up with the right size. So going back to AutoCAD, what I'm going to do is I'm going to start out by creating these other sizes of mattresses so that we can build them into our dynamic block. And now people might ask, well, why do you want to do that? Why don't you just set the dynamic block so that we can stretch it vertically and horizontally and just use a dimension parameter inside the dynamic block? Well, the reason I think for this it doesn't really make sense to have that infinitely scalable is that these things are all standardized sizes. So there's no reason why you would want to make a mattress that's 40 inches wide and 80 inches long, because it's not a standard size and you wouldn't actually be able to buy one that size. So for this reason, for stuff that's all standard sizes like this, I prefer to use visibility states inside my dynamic blocks, because you can lock people into those standard sizes and you don't have to worry about them accidentally drawing something that doesn't exist or something that would be a custom size if you're speaking about cabinets or sinks or things like that. So I prefer almost all the time to use visibility states for my dynamic blocks, especially when I'm doing things that are standardized sizes. Like doors, mattresses, anything you can think of that would have a standard size, nuts, bolts, all that kind of stuff. So we're going to use a visibility state after we get these 4 different mattress sizes drawn. And when you download that DWG file that I gave you in the Week 2 folder, you're going to be starting out with this queen mattress already drawn at the correct size. So I'm going to start by doing the full mattress next, which should be 54 wide and 75 long. So I'll just go back to AutoCAD, and I'm going to start simply by taking this whole thing and I'm just going to do a copy on it. And I'm just going to copy it straight over, and once I do that, I'm going to start adjusting the size. And I said it should be 54 wide. And I'm just going to put some construction lines in here so I know where this stuff is supposed to go. And it's supposed to be 75 long. So you can see that I've got a little bit too much here and too much here, so I'm going to take these and just move them over and up. And then I'll do some trimming. And finally I'm going to take these 2 pillows and kind of center them back up so they'd be in the middle of the bed, just to kind of keep things looking nice as part of our final dynamic block. So I'll take these and just kind of move them back over to the middle and delete my construction lines, clean this line up, and there we've got the full size mattress at the correct size now. And I'm going to go ahead and create the twin size mattress now, which if you go back to the PDF you'll see that that's 39 inches wide and the same 75 long. So on this one we only have to fix the horizontal dimension. So I'll take this full mattress, copy it over again, and I'm going to put in a construction line here that's 39 inches long. And I'm just going to move the edge over to match up. And on this one we're only going to have 1 pillow, just because the mattress is so small. I don't know anybody that sleeps with 2 pillows in a twin mattress really, because there's not room. So I'll trim these lines up, and then I'll just take this remaining pillow and center it up. Do a little bit more trimming. Okay, so we've got our twin mattress now, and finally we need to make the king mattress. So going back to our PDF one final time, you can see that that needs to be 76 inches wide and 80 inches long. So for this one I'm going to copy the queen mattress since the length will already be correct. So we'll copy the queen mattress straight over. And I'm using keyboard commands for my copy, but you can do it up here off the toolbar also. And this needs to be 76 inches wide, so I'm going to put in a construction line and take everything here and kind of stretch it out. And then I'm just going to use the extend command to take these lines and lengthen them all up. And finally, if you'll notice, most king-size beds have a larger pillow size because these little tiny pillows look kind of funny on there. So I'm going to take these pillows and make them about 6 inches wider at the same time before I center them up. And one really handy trick, if you don't know, is when you're inside the trim command, if you hold down the shift key and click, you can actually extend lines, which this is a trim command that a lot of people don't know about. So if you're inside the trim command and you want to extend a line, for instance, if I trim this, and I can bring it back by holding down shift and clicking, so you can trim and extend basically seamlessly that way. So that's a nice trick if you don't know that already. It's one you'll see me use a lot. So after I've got these fixed, I'm just going to go ahead and center those up. And then that looks a little funny, so I'm just going to spread these two apart just a little tiny bit. Maybe another 4 inches each way. And one final trim. Okay, so there we have all of our 4 mattress sizes correctly drawn. And one thing that I wanted to show you guys that I didn't in class last week is how to purge items from a drawing. So let's say, for instance, that I'm creating a block and I accidentally make a block of the wrong thing. So let's say I'm trying to make a block of one of these mattresses and I accidentally get the wrong thing selected, and when I create my block I accidentally get this circle up here. So for instance, I'm just going to call this block Oops. And I'll put it into my drawing now, and when I go to my block edit list, you'll see that it shows up in there. Well, one of the things you'll also notice is that if I delete this and I go back into my block editor list, it's still part of the drawing. So a lot of people want to know, well, I've got these blocks in my drawing and I didn't really mean to make them, or they're old ones or junk blocks and I'm trying to get rid of them, so how can I get rid of these things once I've actually made one? Well, there's a function of AutoCAD called the Purge tool. So if you type in Purge, P-U-R-G-E, this is where you can get rid of stuff in your drawing that's old, or you don't have it in there anymore, or stuff you accidentally inserted. So this works for everything you see here, for groups, dim styles, old blocks, old layers, old line types. And what this purge will do is it will take out anything that you've inserted in your drawing at any point and then took back out. So it's not going to purge out anything that's active in your drawing. A lot of people are afraid to use this purge tool because they think it's going to accidentally delete stuff that they're currently using in your drawing. But the only stuff that shows up in this purge list is stuff that was in your drawing at one point or another, and now it no longer is. So for instance, you can see I had that Oops block up here that was just a circle, and since I deleted it, it shows up in my list of available purge items. So if I purge this out, it's going to ask me, do I really want to purge the block Oops? Well, so I'll say yes. And now you'll see that it disappears from the list, so I can close the purge editor. And if I go back up to my block editor menu, you'll see that it's gone now. So if you ever have any layers that you accidentally made and you want to get rid of them, or any line types that you accidentally loaded in and you don't want, or blocks you created by accident and you can't get rid of them now, you can do that always through the purge tool. And one thing that's really nice to know about the purge tool is if you have a big complex drawing that you've been working on for a long time, sometimes they'll start to get sluggish, and it's a good idea just to come down here and hit this purge all button, and it's not going to get rid of anything you need. It's only stuff that you put into your drawing and then took back out. So if your drawing gets sluggish or slow, a lot of times you could come into this purge menu and do a purge all, and it'll clean up all that trash inside your file and help speed things up a little bit. So that's just kind of another tip that sort of goes along with blocks. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to create a new block using all these. So I'm going to go up here and go to create. I'm just going to call this block bed, because ultimately when we get done, we want to be able to select between all these 4 sizes seamlessly on the fly. And I'm going to just say convert to block, and I'm going to select the objects. So I'll select all those, hit enter. And the base point, I'm going to use a pick point, and I'm just going to start right here. We may end up deciding to change that, but for right now I'm going to pick the top left corner of this king mattress. And I'm going to come down here to the bottom and check the box that says open in block editor, because to create this dynamic block, remember, we have to do all of that through the block editor. So I'll hit the OK button, and now you'll see we come into the block editor. So the first thing I need to do is set up a visibility parameter. So I'm going to take my visibility parameter, I'm just going to drag it onto the drawing here, and it's going to say specify parameter location down here in the command line. So I'm just going to come up here and O-track down a little bit, and I'm going to place it right about here. So now when I'm using this block, I'll be able to click on the triangle right there to change between these different bed sizes inside my house layout. So the first thing that we need to do after we create this visibility parameter is set up some visibility states to go along with it. So I'm going to come up to our visibility states button, and I'm going to basically set up a visibility state for each one of these 4 beds. So I'll have a king bed, queen bed, full bed, and twin bed. And I usually like to rename this visibility state 0, so I'm just going to rename this king bed, and then I'll make 3 additional ones. And when you come down to this new visibility state button, make sure you have this middle radio button selected that says show all existing objects in new state. If you select one of these other ones, it's going to start trying to guess if you want to toggle things on or off inside those visibility states, and it can get frustrating. So for simplicity's sake for right now, just go ahead and leave this middle one selected. That way you can choose what's turned on and turned off by default in each visibility state. And AutoCAD's not going to be trying to guess for you what should be on and what should be off. So I'm just going to select that middle one and hit OK. And I'm going to rename this one. This will be the queen bed. And we'll do a new one. I'm going to call this one full bed. And finally one more for the twin. So once you get those all set up, you can hit the OK button. And a word of warning, your computer may or may not do this, but earlier when I was working with these visibility states, I was setting things to be on or off, and I was noticing that it must have been a graphics card issue. It wasn't really displaying the objects the way that it should. So if you've turned things on or off and you know that they should be that way, sometimes it's better just to close that block editor and save and come back into it. Once in a while you'll see some graphics issues going on in here, and even though you know you've done something, it won't totally show up the way you expect, or things that you know should be turned on may appear as though they've been turned off. So if you get some funky stuff going on inside this block editor with visibilities, know that it's probably working okay, but it's just a graphics issue where you need to close and go back into it. So if you see it start doing funny things, that's why. It's not that you're doing anything wrong, and your computer may be okay, it may just be mine, but just a word of warning. So now it's time to actually toggle this stuff on and off. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to start by grouping things. So this will help keep these lines from becoming mixed up inside of each other. So what I like to do is I'm going to take, for instance, this here, and if I go back to my Home tab, I can take this queen mattress and I can hit the group button right here. And you'll see once I do that, just like in our regular old drawing menu, it turns everything into a group. And make sure you have your bottom group selection on-off button toggled on. And I'm going to do that for all the mattresses and just create a group for each one of them. And that's just going to keep the lines from getting mixed up between one drawing to the other. And then over here, when you create the group for this king mattress, make sure that you don't select this visibility state, or that could cause you some problems. You don't want that to be grouped in with your lines. So do a green selection window to kind of work around that. Make sure it's not selected. And then once you get everything else selected, then you can come up here and turn it into a group. But make sure you don't get that visibility state included as part of the group, or it's going to cause you problems. So now I've got those all grouped, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to come in here, back to my block editor tab, and I'm going to start toggling things on and off inside of these 4 visibility states that I built. So I'm going to start with the king bed visibility state, and you'll notice that sometimes it won't select the one you want. Again, this may be just an issue with my computer, but if you notice that you're clicking on king bed and it won't activate that visibility state, you can come to your visibility states manager, and you can always choose it here and say set current, and that'll always work. So then you can hit OK. So now you can see it's selected up there. This was an issue I was having earlier, so just kind of a workaround for that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come in here and select each one of these, and I'm going to, after I select it, hit the Make Invisible button up here, and you'll see that it disappears from that visibility state. So I'm going to turn all of these other 3 off, and now I'm going to change my visibility state to the next one, which would be the queen bed. And you can see that it's being stubborn. It wants to stay on king, even though things are starting to show up now that shouldn't. So I would recommend just going to the visibility state manager, picking the visibility state you want, and hit that set current button, and then come down and hit OK. This was an issue I was having earlier, and it was getting frustrating. So I recommend using that visibility state menu. So now I'm going to come in and turn these other ones off and leave the queen on this time. And I'll go back to visibility states, choose full, set that current, and this time I'll turn these 3 off, make those invisible, and finally I'll go to my twin bed visibility state, hit OK, and I'm going to turn off these 3 and make those invisible. So once you get this all programmed in, you can come in here and test it, and you'll see that we need to do just a little bit more tweaking before this thing is right. So by default, when you insert this block, it's going to go to the top visibility state, which in mine is going to be the king bed visibility state. But when I click on this inside the tester, you can see that I get my drop down here for my visibilities, so I can change between whichever one I want. But you'll notice that those things stay at wherever their original location was. So if I don't stack them up inside of my block editor, you're going to get this sort of annoying thing where it looks okay with the king bed, but when you go down to the twin, well, your visibility state toggle is all the way down here, and your drawing is actually way over here. So to eliminate that, I'm going to close this tester by hitting the close test block window, and I'm going to come back and I'm going to make a new visibility state. And this is just going to be temporary, but I'm going to make a new one, and I'm going to call it all on. And make sure you have the middle button checked here, hit OK, and OK again, and you'll see they all come back. And the trick here is to take them and sort of stack them up with a common point or a common location. So what I like to use is this point right here and stack them all up based on that location. And this is where it's really handy to have these things grouped. So if you haven't grouped them already, you'll want to do that now. But what you can do is you can just pick these and move them all over just using your regular old move command, and you're just going to stack them all up. And the nice thing about having these grouped is if you accidentally get one in the wrong spot, you can just take it and move it over, and all the lines come with it. So I can easily take these all back apart if I've grouped them. So now you can see I've got them all stacked up based on this reference point right here. And if I go back into my test block, now if I choose that king size bed and choose to a different size, like a queen or a full, you'll see that I don't have to chase it all over the drawing anymore, that it's always going to stay in the correct location. And that's because I had them stacked up inside of my block editor. And at this point, I really don't need this all-on visibility state. It sort of becomes useless. So what you can do is you can go back into your block editor, and you can just delete that visibility state. Now, it won't let you delete it if it's the current visibility state, so you may have to come up to this top one and set that current, and then come back down and delete it. So once you get that done, you can come up here and save the block. Just hit the Save Block button, and then you're ready to close the block editor. So now at this point, back in regular old AutoCAD, we have created a dynamic block for these four different mattress sizes. So if you were laying out, say, a 3-bedroom house and you wanted to have different mattress sizes, you wouldn't have to redraw them constantly, or if you're trying to figure out if one may fit instead of another. So you can go through and seamlessly change those without having to spend time drawing them and checking the sizes and making sure that they're right. So one final thing I want to show you is, now that we've created this dynamic block, how do we actually save it somewhere so that we can reuse it over and over and over? So right now it's inside this drawing, but if I want to take it and insert it into any drawing I might do in the future, well, how do I take this and make sure that I've got it saved properly in the right location, in the right format? Well, some people usually would just take this and they'd give it some name, so they may call it bed.dwg, and they would do a save as with it and save it wherever they want. And then when they go back into another drawing, they would insert the drawing as a block. But the problem with that is that you can get what's called a circular reference in AutoCAD, where it looks at itself for something and it basically goes in circles over and over, and it freaks out, and it'll tell you you have a circular reference down here, and it will not insert the block. So the correct way to actually take these blocks and export them is to do what's called a write block, or W block. So we're going to take this block and we're going to write it to a file. So you can see down here I've just typed W block in my command line. So I'll hit enter, and you'll get the write block menu pop up, and the source I'm going to do is block, and I'm just going to choose bed. So the dynamic block that we have inside this drawing that's called bed, I'm going to take that and I'm going to write it to its own file so that I can use it as a block. And so you'll choose block here, and then finally you want to choose the destination path. And the destination you'll want to use is probably wherever you save your blocks at. So if you have a preferred file that you like to put them in and have all your own personal blocks in there, that's usually what I do. So for instance, I've got a folder here that I call my dynamic blocks, so I'm just going to save it inside there. And then anytime I'm in a new drawing and I need to insert one of my dynamic blocks, I know that it's going to be saved in this folder and I don't have to go hunting it down. So it's good to have a special folder just for your blocks that you know where it is and you can keep them there. So I'm going to take this block that we made, this dynamic block, and I'm going to write it to this file for future use. So you can see I've already done it once here, so I'm just going to save over the top of it and hit OK. And it's going to ask me if I want to replace it. You won't get this, obviously, if this is the first time you've done this. So now it's saved as a block in a separate file. So if I go to a new drawing, for instance, I'll show you how to insert that block now that we've got it created. So I'm just going to come up here and make a new drawing from an ACAD template. And so here's just my regular standard drawing. I haven't got anything in there yet, but let's say I'm working on a floor plan and I need to insert that block that I know I made in the past and I've used it before. So I'm going to come up here to the Insert Block tool, and now if you click the drop down, you'll see that it's not in there because it hasn't been included in part of this drawing yet. So I'm going to go to Browse and choose Bed from my Dynamic Blocks folder. So you would navigate down to wherever your block folder is at. So it might be on your flash drive, it might be on your C drive, wherever you keep those. And then you're just going to choose that block and hit Open, hit OK, and you might see that it pops up really big. It's probably just because you're zoomed in, and you can drop that wherever you want and then zoom out to an appropriate level. So now you'll see I have this block included as part of my drawing, and it works just like it did before, so I can take it and resize it as much as I want. So I can pick whatever size I need to. So that's how you actually take a block, create it, write it to a separate file, and then you can include it in any drawing that you want by using the Insert Block tool and navigating down to that file that we created. So for your drawing today for Lab E, see if you can create this similar block right here, just like I did, and put it in some type of file. So make a drawing file and include it in there, and then upload that as your Lab E to Blackboard, and I'll check and see if you have correctly created this dynamic block. So that's it for today. Give it a shot, and let me know if you have any questions, and we'll see you next time.